Okay, now I'm going to share the screen. And sorry, I forgot to make it a little bit larger. Okay, welcome everyone to the May 24th iteration of the MicroProfile live Hangouts. A link to the meeting minutes is in the chat, although someone may need to re-add it because I think a bunch of people have joined since I posted it. Please click on the link and add your name to the list of attendees under MicroProfilers. This meeting is being recorded along with the chat, both of which will be uploaded to YouTube sometime after the call. So, I forgot to send out the tweet for the MicroProfile recording. I did upload that. All right, I'll do that later. Yeah. Okay, the program plan status. We have a lot of things to do with regards to the roadmap and the next release. So I'm going to kind of keep this very short. And I don't want to catch everyone off guard, but I did take an action item last week to kind of assign those GitHub issues to individuals. So I did that. So a bunch of you probably all of a sudden got a lot of GitHub notifications saying you're assigned to this. And some have like way too many. But it's just a way, at least for us now, to begin tracking them. I assigned the issues to the section leads of the program plan in terms of how we normally track it. So, that may then require those individuals to subassign if necessary. So the marketing committee, for example, is, that rotates and so on. So there is no like one lead. So Amelia, I assigned you to most of those. But in the marketing meeting, we can basically have volunteers address each of those.
Count on it. I saw them come in and I thought we do this volunteering.
Yeah. So just a heads up so no one's really, caught off guard. There's a couple of leads that don't belong to the MicroProfile repository, so I couldn't assign them. Right.
Sorry, John, can you just add the Git issues, the Git IDs here, and I will be happy to add them with right access.
Add the Git ID. Oh, the user IDs, you mean?
Yeah.
Of those individuals. Yeah, there's only a couple of them.
Right,
yeah,
but so you have that access as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can join the project, right?
That's what I would have thought, right? I mean, like,
yeah. It's just a note to, reach out to those individuals to, hey, can you, join the project so we can assign you work. Not exactly the best incentive, but
but we can do it faster. What I say, that my recommendation is to do it faster. If you know the emails, we can find them via email or ID, and then just add them, and we can assign them immediately on the spot. This thing about waiting for later will not work because we're all busy.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. Bruno, I saw you just joined. A link to the meeting minutes should be in the chat, and you can click on that and add yourself as a meeting attendee. Okay.
Hi, thanks.
Yep. If it's not in the chat, again, we still have people joining, so every once in a while we kind of have to repost the meeting ID. Sorry, a link to the meeting minutes. Okay, so we've got a lot to discuss as it relates to the program. The releases. So let's see, where do we start? Emily, I know you're driving kind of a lot of this discussion, or even Nathan. Where do we start? Do we start out with this first issue on the vote and what's going on right now? Option 1 versus option 2?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking for it.
So
that's not it.
Here
we go.
Yeah. So this vote is still have 3 hours to go. So I think we can leave it and let it running, and then tomorrow, basically the vote. If you haven't voted, please go ahead to vote. So it's in 3 hours and 30 minutes it will close, and then I will calculate all the votes. Basically, one thing is the kind of, because this is a community vote. Also, there's kind of a binding vote and non-binding vote. Do we want? I think it's the, do we want? Basically, all the vote count. I can separate.
Emily, to interrupt you,
yeah.
That vote
is invalid because you used not the official tool to conduct that vote. And I thought we had discussed last week having that consensus talk on the mailing list, the email mailing list. I meant not a chat tool that is the right tool to discuss things and maybe to do non-binding votes. But for a valid vote, we need to have a ballot on the mailing list.
This is not a working group vote, Jens. This is a kind of community vote. So
that's okay
that's
then.
why it's on Google Group.
Then it's okay.
Yeah. Yes. So
We've
it's,
had
everybody is welcome to vote. So I will calculate the vote when it's closed, which is 10:37 p.m. UK time.
Yeah.
So it sounds more like a survey than a vote.
Yes.
That is
Like a survey to gather
probably more
input
accurate.
than a vote.
Yeah, just hold on. We've had votes on the Google group list before. We have encouraged everybody to vote, but we have always counted the committer votes. For example, there was, I forget the vote about should the TCK requirements of the dependencies be part of the TCK requirements of MicroProfile. Ken Finnegan organized that vote. We had it on the Google group. We encouraged everybody to vote. That's what Apache does, encourages everybody to vote. Apache also has the concept of binding votes, and we've historically taken that approach as well of, the committers have binding votes, but of course we're an inclusive community. We do want to hear from everybody. But if you have an earned commit, you're not going to sway the vote to winning or losing. We're just taking your feedback.
So when I calculate, I will calculate basically it's binding vote and non-binding vote. So it's
Again, define binding vote. That's committer.
Committers.
yeah,
Right. Just
committer vote and versus non-committer vote. So basically, I will lay out all the kind of the status and etc. So yeah.
So you didn't really make those definitions before the vote happened. So I thought this was just a community I like the word survey, but it's a vote across the community. You didn't say that some votes would be more important than others. Seems a little late to be adding that stipulation.
For me, I feel like this is the kind of all the vote carries equal weight is fine. So basically, I think it's not related to like the technical directions and etc. I think it's I'm fine to just like collect all vote.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do that because I do agree. I think it's wise. If it's for one spec, it's okay. Do you want to do this and do that? But this is kind of affect everybody, all the people.
For future votes, when we're having them, can we make sure that when we encourage everybody to vote, but we're still being clear it's a committer vote? I mean, the people who are committers on the project should have the ability to decide what happens. That's what happens when you get commit, right? You get the ability to influence the direction.
I think it depends on what kind of the issue. For some like yes, like what I said earlier, if it is for a particular spec and etc., and we want to like declare dependencies and something like that. And I think this is across the board. In the future, if we go with vote, I think in the text, maybe this is something to improve. In the text, when we say vote, is like we declare like a committer vote will be binding vote, all the others welcome, but they won't influence the direction. So,
but can we have official votes on the mailing list? There's a manual how to conduct voting inside the Eclipse Foundation, and how to use chat tools. And what tools to use to do official voting?
Well, so, I mean, in some ways I feel
allows us to
uncomfortable.
gain consensus, however we like.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the official vote is the release plan for the next release. I think here the idea was just to figure out what the release plan should be. Some input and some guidance from everyone to figure out, the release plan, right? So
here's what I'd say. I'd say it's kind of like a vote, kind of quacks like a duck, quacks like a duck. So it is kind of like a vote where you're going to record, or you're interested that you're considering the committer input as the definitive input, but you're looking for all points of view. My recommendation would be then, if you're doing this on the Google group, that the results, the outcome of it, be recorded on the work group mailing list. And that way it's on an Eclipse managed mail. The results of the vote are on Eclipse managed mailing list. You're setting a direction for the project for its release plan. And it's, those that have the binding opinion or binding positions on that are the committers. So put the result on the work group mailing list, because I don't think the project mailing list is very active.
Okay, so in that case, for when I calculate all the result, I will post cross post to the Google group and plus the working group mailing list. Is that what you are suggesting?
Yeah, at this point in time, that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Agree with cross posting.
Okay. Is that it for this specific topic then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So once we work out the result, etc., so next week, so we can join. We will have a clear view on that, and then we can put into execution.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is the next release discussion. Is there anything you wanted specifically to point out?
No, we don't need. I don't think so.
Okay. And then this is something we should probably discuss, and that is the minimum release version of the Java. Sorry, 8 versus 11 versus 17 maybe, and then we could separately discuss about the Jakarta EE alignment. So, someone want to give a summary of this discussion, the Java release version from the technical call?
Sure. If BJ is not here, BJ would be the person to do that, because he's been organizing the vote text. But essentially, the vote text that's being proposed is saying that an individual specification doesn't need to increase its Java version unless it itself needs that higher level Java version, or it has a dependency that needs that higher level Java version. So, you yourself or something you needs the Java version increase. But if something that needs you, for example, the umbrella spec says our Java version is 17, just making up an example, that does not go and sweep across all the things that it encompasses, right?
So I posed the reverse question to one of the threads. Sorry, I can't remember which one. Basically saying, what if a component spec wants to update to 11 or 17, but the rest of them aren't? Right. So how does this how does this impact the platform spec? Right. Our decision-making process. I didn't really see that case covered.
That is covered, right? So if you look at the text, it basically says your Java version is affected by yourself and the things that you need. So in that situation, the umbrella spec needs that other spec that's on Java 17. Therefore, the umbrella spec probably has to bump up to 17.
Yeah, that's exactly the scenario you have just described, David, right?
Right.
So that would be a really big decision. So when it came to the release plan for that individual spec, people should heavily discuss the fact that it would influence, or mandate not every other spec, would mandate the platform spec to be updated.
The upstream specs, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So the upstream specs would be, if they did not want to switch to 17, they would have to say, please don't use 17, or we're not going to include you in the next umbrella release because we don't want to upgrade to 17. We're going to stick with your old version, and you've made that choice.
Actually, that's a good point too. And by the way, BJ did just join in.
Yes.
BJ, we were just briefly talking about going through the list of active discussions, and the minimum Java version topic kind of came up. So I was just looking for a summary from the technical call, which David kind of began to summarize.
Right, yeah. So I think the basic thrust of the sort of proposal is to reach a common understanding that for an individual MicroProfile spec, it should be conservative unless it wants to be innovative by using a new language feature. But basically the goal is to not unnecessarily drive up the Java version unless we actually want to use it, because it gives that specification a maximum aperture of use, right? Because it can be used in older Java versions, because it doesn't at the API level need newer Java versions. Now it's quite possible that, of course, implementations of the specs will choose to use later Java versions because, yeah, it's super convenient to use all those new Java doodads in your implementation. But it's not necessarily good for the API classes themselves to be forced up to a new Java version. And in the platform discussion, I don't see that there's any reason that the platform can't have a higher Java version than some of its parts do.
It's the other way around. It's
that way. Like if there's 5 specs in the platform and one of them is on 17 and the other 3 are on 8, or other 4 on 8, I still could do math, I swear. Then the platform version would have to be 17.
Right. It's the union.
Right. It's the max, right? But that doesn't mean that the other 4 specs have to bump up to 17 and we got to re-release them and say you're 17. There's no reason that we would tell people who have legitimately implemented those specs on Java 8, who have implementations that work just fine on Java 8, and users using Java 8, that now you can no longer enjoy this thing that you've been enjoying because this other unrelated spec to you is 17. So therefore you can't ship any implementations on 8. You can't use it on 8. It doesn't work that direction, right? It's the upstream that gets bumped, not the downstreams.
Yeah, and the platform.
Go ahead,
and the platform, must give some guidelines. So if you want to use 17, like JAX-AS or Jakarta REST will do with a 4.0 version in the future, then we will have that discussion. Then the platform release must declare, we want to build a Java SE 11 release this time, or we want to do a Java SE 7 dependent release, and it's allowed to include that spec.
Right. Yeah, I think there has to be some dialogue between the platform and the individual specs to make sure there's a coordinated effort in terms of raising the minimum Java level, just so that it makes sense from an overall perspective.
Right. And that's where the second vote comes into play, which is if you rely, let's use the JAX-RS example. MicroProfile does include some dependency on JAX-RS. But if the MicroProfile specifications that leverage JAX-RS could work on an older version of JAX-RS as well as the newer version of JAX-RS, we have no reason to say that our Java version level would need to change. basically, if a particular spec could work on, say, JAX-RS 3 or JAX-RS 4, then great, use either of those.
I'm not so sure about that because for my application, I want to have a valid contract, and I might expect that or will be surprised with when a lower Java SE version is suddenly not working because of a transitive dependency when I choose a platform.
Well, let's back up though and talk about the implementation. So first of all, let's focus it on the spec. Does the spec require this new? Does the MicroProfile spec leverage a new feature from JAX-RS 4.0? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then obviously it would no longer be able to be implementable against JAX-RS 3. And then you have to upgrade, because now MicroProfile, say, REST client is leveraging JAX-RS 4 and no longer can support 3 because it's leveraging specific features and APIs added in 4.
Right, and this is a
Like
perfect
the records,
analogy.
for example. Sorry.
Sure, there you go. That's an example. So in that situation, in order to implement the REST client, you can only do so on a JAX-RS 4.0 implementation. Now, the other scenario where JAX-RS 4.0 came out, but REST client does nothing. It isn't really, I mean, it implements a couple of new features that it made up itself, but they don't necessarily have any dependency on 4. You could still use 3 if you wanted. In that scenario, then an implementation could choose to implement that REST client using JAX-RS 3 or 4, and you as a consumer would simply pick the implementation that you like best. But the spec perspective is it could run on either. So it would basically be saying JAX-RS 3 or higher is our requirement. So there might be an or higher out there. That's okay. We don't need to drop the support for 3 because we haven't used any of the leverages, any new features of 4. So the spec still says we need JAX-RS 3.0 or higher.
Right, we call this compile low, run high. So you try to compile against the lowest API version that makes sense for you because you need the features in that API version. But at runtime, you can pick any higher compatible version that meets your interests. But you don't have to. And this is the same analogy for the Java libraries, right? You compile against the lowest version of Java necessary for your API's feature set. But of course, those class files can run in any later version of Java since they support your older class file versions.
I like the compile low, run high. Maybe you could work that into both sections of the votes. Just so, because it really illustrates that, that we adopt a compile low, run high perspective, which means blah, blah, blah. And, that would be, I like it.
Okay, I'll try and throw that in as a mnemonic device.
Okay. I'm going to kind of switch over to the next one. And Emily, I don't know if you want to cover this discussion on the impact of changing Jakarta versions on MicroProfile spec versions.
So basically a MicroProfile version is some I think because this Jakarta E10 is a backward, a lot of them is kind of the backward compatible. We need to work out whether any MicroProfile spec need to do any specific change to take into consideration of the Jakarta E10. If not, there shouldn't be any change in the spec. This is only with the exception the spec itself need to introduce any change, like MicroProfile metrics per se, they have their own backward incompatible changes. So that's warranty MicroProfile metric 5. So we have to look at the spec case by case. So I think again, BJ, you have this kind of the proposal as well, right, BJ?
Yeah, so that's the language. I think there's a later version of that I updated based upon some feedback from David. But so I can separate those and obviously into 2 voting threads, and hopefully add a little front matter with the code compile low, run high slogan.
Yeah, even no change, and they don't need to.
Right. So are we ready for me to kick those votes off tomorrow?
BJ, you missed one part at the beginning of the session of the call where we said when the vote is sent, we need to be very specific of we welcome all the votes. Is it going to be binding for committers only, or will it include all the votes as equal? So,
right. So I think, yeah, this particular situation, since it's a vote of the project,
Committer vote.
Yeah,
would be a committer vote. Of course, we welcome feedback, input from all members of the community, but the binding votes belong to the committers.
Yeah, I agree.
If you can actually specify it, that would be great, because we missed the mark in the latest vote happening right now. So it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, no, I will be hopefully crystal clear, but
we're all human.
Yep.
Is it just me, or do Paul, Buck, and BJ sound exactly alike? Is it the same person logged in twice?
No, not to me.
No,
but,
not to
me. Similar, but not.
Okay,
not
it's just me then. Sorry.
Very different for me though.
Okay, it's just me. It's the headphones. I'll win the headphones.
I have more hair than Paul.
Your hair has
are you implying that is audible in your voice?
No, I'm just trying to be clear that we're not the same person.
That's so cute. We should tweet that.
Okay. Yeah.
One question. Do we then have that vote on the mailing list, the working group mailing list, please?
It's a committer vote, so it would be on the Google group. That's where all the committers are. The working group mailing list is very low subscriptions.
Right.
We can summarize on the working group list as well. We can do the cross post thing, but
I had a chat with Paul Buck the other day, and from Eclipse's point of view, they at least want it recorded on the dev list, because that's a mail list whose archives they manage.
Right.
Right. So, but I'll send it to both lists, and I guess most people will probably reply to both lists. But when it's all done and dusted, at the bare minimum, the result should be sent to the dev list for posterity.
Right. The solution that we came up with before was cross post. So on the result, make sure we cross post, so that way there's a recording and an Eclipse archive.
Mm-hmm. You're not referring to the MicroProfile -dev list, are you?
Yeah, like I was going to say, we're talking about the working group mailing list. We do not really use the dev MicroProfile, so we need to use the MicroProfile working group mailing list, BJ, for this, and the community.
Right. I mean, we can certainly advise the working group, but this is an activity of the project, right? Because the working group doesn't do technical work. This project is the open source group, which has committers and does technical work and makes decisions that are of a technical nature. So it's okay. It's certainly a great idea to tell the working group what happened, but that's not that's more of a notice, not an actual operational aspect.
Correct.
As long as the result reaches some list that's been archived by the Eclipse Foundation, we're good.
Yep.
So basically, BJ, I recommend you just post on the Google group, and then after the post, you can send an email to the MicroProfile working group. I shared the email, and then it just says there's a voting going on. So people should join the Google group to vote. In this case, like when you post a result, then the people listen to the MicroProfile working group and knows there's an activity is going on. Otherwise, auto blue and then people said, "Oh, I didn't know about it. Why you have a vote? What's this result is about?"
Sorry, I was confused. I was confusing the Google group with the dev mailing list stuff. So sorry about that.
No problem. I think
No, you were not alone. Kenji asked right after you started that voting where to vote. So that's not the optimal solution from my perspective.
Right, I think
And what worked well, really well, was discussion. I don't remember the topic, but there was a ballot started with a consensus thread on the mailing list, the working group mailing list, where there was a discussion and exchanging arguments. And then the official ballot was started a week or 2 weeks later. John did that. And then the official voting takes place. And that still offers the opportunity to other mailing list users to give a community vote, for example. And all is recorded forever.
One thing I like to do, to your point, is to not mix a vote thread with a discussion thread, right? And because it makes it a whole lot easier for the person conducting or leading the vote, right, to just go back and count very explicitly, the +1s, 0s, and -1s.
+1.
If you start adding in discussions, it becomes very difficult, right? So I think we've been very good about that on the working group email alias. But in the Google group, we've always been a discussion, right, group. Yep. And so I kind of worry about that a little bit in the Google group. So we got to make it very clear. Maybe what we do is we have, when we do these via the Google group, have a thread that says, vote thread, and then a separate thread that says vote,
discussion.
vote thread -discuss or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've done that before in the past. It works pretty well. I mean, you basically vote and then foo and then discuss and then foo.
Yeah.
And they're launched off at the same time. And I think I've seen you do it in particular, John, where, you said this is the discussion thread for the vote. If you have any comments, please make them here. Because
otherwise it becomes just, I don't want to say impossible, but very difficult for even anyone reading the thread. Yeah, to sift through and understand.
Well, counting the votes takes forever then, as you said.
So I want to set an example. So for example, I asked Emily during my vote to add the Google Drive, the Google link to the drive, to the working group drive. And she did, but she replied private and said done. And then we had this discussion privately, which is the best way to go, because it doesn't belong to the vote. I think we have been really good, and this changed 3 years ago because it was a little messy on voting for things. So we shouldn't worry about it. We should fix things and provide feedback when something is off. But other than that, let's move on.
So one thing I do like, sorry, I'm pasting it in the chat here, is based on kind of what David said, it's almost like vote. Description, and then discuss.
And then vote description.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also in the vote thread, maybe also just remind people, please go to open the discussion first, and then if you have comments, post there. This is the voters only.
I want to say process. What's what I'm looking for? Approach.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever. Approach guidelines.
Okay.
Now, since we're going to have 2 basic threads around each vote here, and we have multiple groups involved, do we also publicize which of these two threads or both of these two threads get cross-posted to the other lists?
I think we can cross post on the result and just keep it simple.
Yeah. Now, based on what I think Emily or Amelia said, right? What I normally do is I create the discuss thread. Well, you kind of want to cross point, right? The vote thread points to the discuss thread, all right, and the discuss thread points to the vote thread, right? So that way, people can easily see the relationship between the two, and they can easily find the other.
Right, but we also have multiple groups. So assuming the vote happens on the Google group, we also, for awareness purposes, want to advise the working group mail list and probably the dev mail list for completeness that such a vote is in flight.
Sure, send one email off to cover them both.
Yeah, okay.
I will leave out the dev microprofile-dev. I don't know do we still use it?
We don't, only for nominations for new committers.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I've never seen it used.
Only for nominations for new committers. That's it. That's the only use.
Just leave it. Leave the dev. Just working.
Okay, Paul, I think you were going to say something.
I was going to agree with BJ because there may be. Of course, I am.
Is it really BJ?
Just agreeing with yourself.
Yeah. Is that you need some notification to the work group mailing list that the vote is that there is a vote happening, because there could be members that are just on the work group mailing list and on the Google group. Doubt it, but there could be. And as being part of the working group, the governance only requires that they be on the work group mailing list.
I think we are agreeing that, Paul, we're just saying leave out microprofile-dev.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not, yeah.
And one notification from BJ about both votes would be fine, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. So we're basically just publicizing them on the work group mail list.
And by the way, while working on the minutes yesterday, what I did was just add the links of the current discussions to releases. And I wondered if we could do this for future calls. Like, it's just so easy to pull in the forum conversations to lead the discussion and releases, because there's so much going on. Otherwise, it would have been too verbose. So FYI to how it was set up.
Okay, I think it's a fair point. Okay, sorry. I think that covers these topics here. I know the marketing team met yesterday and discussed a little bit about t-shirts, among other things.
We can skip it for the next community call. I think it's much more important if we're going to use anything on the marketing side to show the new compatible implementations page if we have the time. Other than that, the emails have been sent for that update. We could go into other things that are maybe technical for the release if necessary.
Okay.
I have something quick. Before you go to the compatible implementation, John, I just quick mention something for the TCK process. So it's in our process, we talk about the TCK version and share and etc. However, in our release, I had a look. It seems we didn't produce any share fingerprint. So it's for the MicroProfile releases. I think we need to get that implemented. Or anybody know is kind of the maybe I didn't look at the right place. I just looked up but didn't see it.
You can't publish to Maven Central as out one, so they're there. We just need to find it. So it would be next to the TCK archive in Maven Central with the extension, I believe SHA 256 or SHA. There should also be the signature there with the extension ASC.
Okay, so but it's not in the Eclipse download page.
Yeah, we could link to it or import it, or but we're producing it. But if we're not making it easy to find, we can improve that.
Okay. So, okay, in that case, probably I will read the ticket and I will work with you, David, since you.
Sure. I don't know, do we have scripts that are publishing this stuff to the GitHub release page? Because if we do, we would update those scripts to just also grab the SHA and stick it on there.
I need to look into it. I need to double check to verify it was indeed it is indeed to upload to Maven Central, or we completely didn't.
Yeah, Maven Central does not allow you to publish with that one. So they require digital signatures. Like you can't get anything on Maven Central without producing both a SHA and a digital signature.
Okay.
And, effectively a digital signature is an encrypted SHA, if you will. That's a simple way of describing it. So you need both to get onto Maven Central. They will reject your binaries unless you have those.
Right. You also need so that's just just a GPG signing as one of the plugins in your build when you're in.
We have that.
Yep, exactly. So we got all that stuff. It's all being produced. If we want it to show up on a specific page, we just need to either link it or download it and upload it to the spot we want.
Oh, okay. So in that case, it just make it visible. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
I will take a further look at it.
Yeah, it'll be in Maven Central next to the actual TCK jar.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be the TCK jar.asc for the digital signature, and I believe the SHA is either like just SHA or SHA 256. I can't remember which.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna switch back over here to the compatible implementations topic.
Thank you.
So Amelia?
Yeah, so with the help of Ryan and Andre, we have launched this page of compatible implementations. There are 2 pages, mainly 3 actually. On May 11th, an email has been sent to the community forum. There are tickets, and already Martin from Red Hat is sending feedback to improve the pages. You can see the updates already. Before, we only had 2 implementations here, OpenLiberty and Quarkus. With Martin's feedback, we went in and added a bunch of Pajara different implementations, which is very cool. We will bring the blogs associated with each release. This can be written by the community, by the implementers. It doesn't really matter. If it talks about the release, it will be added at the end of the page. That is a nice feature. And there is also a wiki being created to tell anyone in the world who wants to be compatible with MicroProfile that they can submit their projects or implementations for, to this list. So Emily is on that. If you want to update on the status, Emily, go for it.
Yeah, so basically, so John, if you go back to the photo 1, so here is there's one suggestion at the moment. I just saying OpenLiberty and Quarkus. So there's a suggestion we say which version OpenLiberty, which version Quarkus. So similar to the Pajara. So that's just one suggestion. So basically, it's Ryan and I just worked out all this. If anybody have any further updates and etc., so just use this as a baseline, and we keep on improve it. So it's this is the baseline for for now. Yeah, so basically what John you highlighted, basically we will just add the OpenLiberty 2109, and similarly we will add the Quarkus version there as well.
Okay, and so this is the top level. Sorry, I'm looking for this is the top level page, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I thought at one point on the top level page, we were going to have compatible implementations for the most current release.
What do you
No,
think, John?
I think
So if you go to,
Yeah, on the Jakarta side, we do all releases.
right, sorry.
So you never get removed. Basically, once you're on, but you're never going to get removed.
Right.
So
So
that's
if you
like,
go to the,
yeah, that's
yeah,
gen-
to the
that's to
very-
all
yeah, there you go.
releases, right?
Yeah.
So that's all releases.
for some reason, I thought we were going to do something similar. I could
We
be wrong
can.
on that.
Yeah, this was so that we could show you what we have, and then we will iterate. Those kind of tags need to come into new tickets. We will close. Emily, can you close, please, the tickets that we currently have open, so that the main thing is done. We have submitted this page, and then new feedback should be coming with new tickets, and we will iterate. What we didn't want is to continue the discussions. It has been a month and a half in the marketing side, providing loop into feedback, and he's been a really used maybe like 95% of the time on this page, and it's nice, doable, and it's fair. It is a requirement by the working group to have these pages. Now we can make it exactly what we want to do. There is no limits. Submit the tickets, provide the feedback, and then we will work on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's another, I think is we at the moment we list all the like information like requested from the like some of the ticket and etc. We link to the all the various like the places. So John, if you go back to the MicroProfile 5.1 page, so there's like some other feedback because this is the implementation page. And then also the, I mean, there's this kind of description of MicroProfile 5. Anybody have any concerns with regarding all these kind of the MicroProfile 5 or the content, and then later on is the compatible implementations?
I like it a lot.
Yeah, so that's good. So
Yeah, I do like including just the top level themes.
Yeah.
But nothing more detailed than that.
Right. The
Totally.
release blog has all that in there. So I think it's just
Yeah.
really, really great balance.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so this is a kind of just we address the feedback from the community because people complain about because we only display the latest. So if they are on the older version, they couldn't find the previous version building block and etc. Now, if you click on photo 1, so you can see the you can see if you go up a bit, you can see everything there. So in this trend, like 1.6 out is the kind of basically you can see the building block for all the previous ones plus the latest ones.
and we, like Emily said, we keep it super simple and simplify the clicks. If we go to main page, John, and thank you so much for sharing the page to the
Just-
main one. Yes, no, to the page compatible implementation that it lists. If we go at the bottom, it also talks about the past. MicroProfile releases prior to 4.1. Look at the writing I drafted. MP4.0 imperial releases cannot be classified as having compatible implementations. A list of those implementations are found here. We decided within the group that this was needed because we cannot delete or forget about the previous releases. Great work was done on those, but those cannot be classified as compatible. So this is what is written at the moment. If you have feedback on how to make this better or clearer, submit a Git ticket and say, hey, we should rewrite this and it should be X, because this is just something I wrote to make sure, and the 4.0 links to the Git release, right? So it's very simple, but if you think you can improve it, submit the ticket, help out. It's that simple. We just need the feedback to improve what you see in the pages.
Yeah, so that's great.
So one comment, I really like short URLs. Maybe we could cut a word out of compatible implementations, because I mean, like we're never going to have a non-compatible implementations page
What do you mean in which side?
on the top of the URL.
Oh, you are saying just the implementations.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, we're never going to have an incompatible
Right.
implementations page. So, you know, just to
Oh.
shorten it up, or just maybe even just /compatible
Okay,
is attractive. Either one.
So then submit a Git ticket. That is a fantastic feedback and simplification. Submit a Git ticket, do it yourself, and then we will work on it. Super simple. It will be done in like 30 minutes, even less.
Yeah.
So
Git ticket is
Jakarta
no
just
shortcut.
uses compatibility.
Yeah, instead of like ility, just compatible.
Yeah,
Right.
compatible, fine. Yeah, good point.
Yep.
Awesome. And
Respect
yeah,
your tickets then.
Which is the right repo to submit that ticket?
Marketing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so
Yeah, I got to
on
think
that-
about this verbiage. I might have some ideas
Exactly.
there.
This one needs some feedback. I shortened it and I made it super short, but I would love for others to go in there and, just, we need,
It could just say for all releases 4.0 and prior, please see here. And
Exactly.
yeah, submit the Git ticket and simplify it. I think it can be simplified. I just wrote it. It's out there. It needs, it needs a review.
Yeah, okay. So the other thing is as to do like the wiki, I think I will also just add a note to say this only kind of contain the information for the MicroProfile 4.0 and and earlier. And then for other things, I just pointed to this page. So it's basically we lock down that wiki page, and so that's it. So it's kind of all the future releases will be logged here.
Yeah, and we have to update this pointing to the new compatible implementations page.
Yes, yeah.
Upload
So I
to the
will
wiki.
also remove the 4.1 and 5.0 row as well from here. I just make
Oh,
it
right.
very clear. This is only 4.0 and earlier versions.
Yes, that I forgot to submit a ticket for that.
No, I thought we were going to have a page that discussed implementations of individual specs. That was just going to be a table format, kind of like we already, kind of like this is.
We could definitely do that.
Right, because if you look at the wiki, I think
we have an item to make a page per spec, and on that page would be the right place to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we can. Yeah, exactly. So basically, it's for each spec could have a page as well.
So Cesar,
yeah, that's kind of what we have here as an example.
So Cesar is working on that with Andre and Summers. Cesar, you're here, and this is about the projects page. The good feedback is going on. Do you have an update for us? It's related to this topic.
Yeah. So for what we are aiming to finish this week is about the contributors page. We haven't started to work yet on the projects page, but all what we are mentioned here is good feedback. And then we're gonna start to analyzing what's the step for finishing the migration, or actually starting the migration on the projects page. I think that's when we will be able to have some updates and also a couple of questions for the community.
Yeah. So I mention this every time Amelia kicks when the topic of are we going to have a page per specification version comes up, somehow always this gets thrown over to the people working on replacing the groovy stuff. They're unrelated. I've said it multiple times. So when we have specification pages for each specification version, they'll be here in WordPress like this. You know what I mean? That they'll just be stuck in WordPress. There isn't any infrastructure that we have in like Groovy or anything to make specification version like release pages with compatible implementations and things like that. You know what I mean? So those are separate. So we can talk about the status of replacing the Groovy stuff, but just FYI, let's not confuse ourselves in thinking that they're the same topic because they're different.
Yeah, correct. So that project page is for the microprofile.io/project. So what we are discussing here is like for example, config 3.0 and then config 2.0, which runtime support that, which runtime compatible with a particular individual specs.
Yeah, there might be MicroProfile/spec config/3.0.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, that's great. I think this is also I would like to to see because not every runtime want to support the whole like a MicroProfile release. They may just pick like 2 of them. It would be great to acknowledge them as well.
But it's also difficult to find where to download the specifications.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like you kind of have to know to go to the GitHub source and then go to the release section, but that's not linked on the website anywhere. So this would improve that. You would be able to just go to MicroProfile/spec or specifications and see them all and click the one you want, go to a page for that specification version, click the download link, get yourself to the spec in your hand.
Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna pause here, sorry. Yeah, good ideas. Edwin was asking for the last minute of the call. We are bumped up at the top of the hour. So if it's okay, I'd kind of like to switch over to Edwin.
Yeah, I will try to keep it short, but I would like to introduce Tom Coles, who has joined us today, which I'm happy to see here. Tom is a software development enthusiast and conference speaker from Belgium. I've been following him for several years now, and he has a lot to talk about. And so I should say, start following this guy on Twitter. So Tom, if you're wondering what I've been doing the past 4 years on my Tuesdays evenings, that's this, joining these calls. So I hope you like what, you like what you hear, and maybe in the future participate or listening in. Maybe we can learn from you. So you're all welcome.
Tom, thanks for joining.
Hola, Tom.
Welcome, Tom.
Welcome, Tom. Hope to see you sometime, like at the conferences.
This is how spec sausage is made.
Exactly.
All right, hey, we are at the top of the hour. So thanks everyone for joining. Same bat time, same bat channel next week for the technical call, and should be a good one as we get the results and discussions for the vote/survey. And in 2 weeks, the live hangout will probably follow up with that. So thanks everyone again for joining, and see you in about a week for many of you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.